Morning. You're still coming in. I want to welcome you this morning. It's a special one. We have some local religious leaders from the community that some of your peers are going to introduce. But I just want to say one thing. What they're doing is the Three Amigos. Does anybody know the movie? Yeah, the movie's great. I love it. It's on my watch it every year. Three Amigos. They'll be introduced momentarily, but they have a interfaith initiative. Since last spring, they've been in the general local community at mosque, at the synagogue, at churches, and they're talking about, some of the commonalities between Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and all religious traditions. How can we come together? We share so many positive attributes, so many values, and to build, to heal society. There's so much, and so we get a lot of negative press in the news. We hear about the shooting at Tree of Life Synagogue. We remember at Emmanuel, African Methodist Episcopal shooting tragically in South Carolina. We know the mosque that was shot in New Zealand. So we get a lot of negative press, but there's something positive happen right here today. So we wanted to bring it to you, and some of your peers now are going to introduce our speakers.
Rabbi Eric Polokoff is the founding rabbi of B'nai Israel of Southbury, serving the congregation since 1997. A familiar presence for many years at Taft, he is active in the Jewish and general community, particularly as a leader within the Connecticut Community Foundation and the Anti-Defamation League. He was educated at Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion in New York and Jerusalem, as well as at Yale Divinity School and the Johns Hopkins University. Rabbi Eric and his wife are the parents of two Tafties, Ariel 2011 and Mia 2015.
Imam Aga, currently a chaplain at Sacred Heart University, brings years of experience working in religious education, youth issues, social affairs, nonprofit organizations, media, and interfaith dialogue. Imam Aga was a vice chairman of the Muslim community of Albania and currently serves as the Imam of the Albanian American Muslim community in Waterbury. He's finishing his PhD in political science at Epoka University in Albania. He finished theology in Marmara University, Istanbul, and attended Hartford Seminary. Imam Aga, together with Rabbi Eric and Monsignor Joe, are part of Interfaith Action Fellowship, an interfaith group of clergy and community leaders in Greater Waterbury area. He is the father of two and married to a wonderful wife named Fatma.
Monsignor Joseph T. Donnelly grew up in the north end of Waterbury as the oldest of 7 siblings and attended St. Thomas Parish, where he served as an altar boy, strengthening his Roman Catholic roots. Monsignor Donnelly said of being a priest, "During times of struggle, people confide in priests, I find. I like working with people and helping them as they experience important moments in their lives. Not just the big moments, but the ups and downs of everyday living. Part of being a believer is seeing that God's a real part of your life. God's not an imaginary figure." Named Monsignor in 2018, Father Donnelly received degrees from St. Thomas Seminary in 1966, a BA in philosophy from St. Bonaventure University in 1968, and graduate degrees from Gregorian University in Rome, Italy in 1972, and Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska in 1981. Father Donnelly loves preaching, and he has been the priest and now the Monsignor of Sacred Heart Church in Southbury for the past 15 years. Please join me in warmly welcoming Monsignor Donnelly, Rabbi Polokoff, and Imam Aga.
Thank you. We've been dubbed the Three Amigos, as we're 3 longtime friends, a rabbi, priest, and imam, representing our faith traditions. As we often present in their order of our religion's establishment, I tend to go first. Yet note how much of what I say about my religion will resonate with my fellow amigos. This morning, we're focusing on what about our faiths and our work together that might be important to you. Here's my response. Engaging the ancient sources and their ongoing interpretation can teach us humility. Consider why the humanities and all that you hear about Horace Taft is so central to this school. They're there to highlight that we should not be so arrogant to think that past generations have nothing to teach us. Instead, just the opposite. We are fortunate to benefit from understanding their struggle and guidance. This, too, applies to the realm of the sacred. I speak as a Reformed Jew, part of Judaism's liberal wing. Yet my conservative and Orthodox sisters and brothers likewise engage in Talmud Torah, in exploring a vast trove of texts and values originally recorded in Hebrew, dating back well over 3,000 years. Encountering this wisdom, we grasp how, amidst life's complications, nuance and discernment have great importance. Study and ritual foster this, attuning us to our daily miracles and to the challenges we face. Study and ritual can help to build identity and center us. They offer meaning and can influence behavior. For at its best, religion inspires us to be just and compassionate. It places the good we do into a larger sacred context. Yet for this to be truly effective, it must be practiced or anchored within community. That's the message behind the concept of a minyan, of a quorum of adult Jews to recite certain prayers. In so doing, Judaism gives others, and hopefully me, a direction, a vocabulary, a means by which not only to develop myself, but to create impact beyond myself. Judaism tells of a deep unity uniting us all and highlights the importance of questioning. Yisrael, Israel, translates as wrestling with God. Judaism's central story of ancient Israel's exodus from Egypt serves as a paradigm for freedom, liberation, and human dignity. Amongst the lessons that logically follow include the Torah's instruction, you must not stand idle while your neighbor bleeds, as well as an insight from a later sage, where is God? Wherever you let God in. Like any treasure, religion can be squandered or misused to defraud or to demean others. But wars or oppressive forces aren't just rooted in religion. Responsible religious leadership, like that of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., led the quest for civil rights, amongst other important social justice concerns. For our part, Jews were part of this vanguard as we heightened diversity to the effort. For just as the world would be diminished if there was only one type of ice cream, so too Judaism adds its own distinct flavor to the storehouse of religious consciousness. Indeed, it's telling that those who sought our destruction, such as the Nazis, did so precisely because they despised the values of pluralism, openness, and inclusivity that we represent. Having known such sorrow in our history, we nonetheless testify to the importance of hope. Current demographic trends point to an upcoming generation, that is, to your generation, far less engaged in religious activity. I sense that over the long term, that might not necessarily work out so well. Yet given the human tendency to search for larger meaning and connections, and given the many injustices and cruelties of this age requiring redress, I still believe the future will engender something more than private spirituality. All of which leads me back to the three Amigos and our significance. For to really understand one's own religion or beliefs, one also needs to know about other systems and practices. In this way, we become familiar not just with our differences, but are able to celebrate our commonality. We three Amigos draw strength from one another. and the teachings of respect and human dignity that ground each of us. Together, we are allies in the battle against prejudice and the fight against indifference. I invite you to consider joining us in this effort. We now turn to Monsignor Joe.
Thanks very much, Rabbi. As Rabbi said as he began his presentation, one of the things that we have discovered, and I think we can discover this in an intellectual way, or we can discover it in kind of a visceral gut way, is the fact that we all have so much in common. When we started this venture as the Three Amigos and responding to the different invitations we've had to speak, I was deeply aware of, let's say, step back. I was deeply curious as to what was the attraction. Why would somebody want to say, Rabbi, Imam, Father, we'd like you to come and talk to our group for one reason or another. And I really think that speaks to something very profound in people's lives. Now, one of the things about profound elements in our lives is sometimes we don't pay attention to them. We're attracted by and engaged by all sorts of other kinds of things going on in our life. But when it comes to the depth of what really matters in our lives, what's really important in our lives, sometimes that gets lost in the fray. As a Roman Catholic Christian, we stand on the shoulders of our Jewish sisters and brothers. We are a Judeo-Christian tradition. As such, we reverence and more understand how much we reverence the Jewish tradition that's before us, as well as the Islamic tradition with whom we share this time today. There's a lot of confusing things. We kind of accidentally walked in on a philosophy class this morning when we were wandering around looking where we were supposed to do. So I suspect that some of you were studying philosophy. Some of you are delving into some religious questions in a lot of your, but even in literature classes and the like, you get into that. And there's a lot of lofty descriptions of what religion can be and can mean for people's lives. I once had a seminary professor who had a great talent. He could take these lofty traditions and he could speak about them crisply and succinctly, and more importantly, memorably. You'd always remember one. One that I always remember puts a finger right on what brings us together today. He said, Jesus Christ promised those who follow him two things. Your life is going to have meaning, and you're going to live forever. If you get a better offer, take it. How about that, huh? I believe that religion and religious practice, religious traditions, as Rabbi pointed, have really been at the core and center of so many of the wonderful advances, the work for justice, the recognition of the respect we have for all people, the importance of doing what is right and good and just in our lives. And that thing we say kind of facetiously, wouldn't the world be a better place if all people respected one another and lived lives of integrity and justice? I think that's really, really true. We are discovering in the conversations we've had with so many people in different situations, not unlike this, where we meet people, we listen to their questions, where people are drawn to come and ask questions about what our various traditions observe and believe and mean, something in our culture that we're used to seeing as in terms of us and them, you know? I'm Christian, so somebody who's Muslim or somebody who's Jewish should be other, different. Just think of all the different ways that we divide the human family. And yet one of the basic beliefs of all three of our traditions is that there is only one God, and we are all somehow God's children. Therefore connected with God in a significant way and connected with one another in a significant way. Wouldn't the world be a better place if people recognize that is, recognized it enough to try to live it and incorporate it into their lives. Our experience in meeting so many people like yourselves, and listening to their questions and their observations about their own religious experience, about their own religious desires, about the things that make them curious about religion, things that they wonder about what that is and what role it can play in modern life. As Rabbi said, there's special concern that really a lot of our younger generation are not connecting with religious tradition or appreciating or understanding it as much as they might have in the past. And we hope that, for instance, in our being here today, we might have the opportunity to respond to some questions that you have, or at least get you thinking in different ways, or set up some conversations among yourselves. I'm going to now hand the microphone on to my brother, Imam Gazi.
Good morning, everyone. It's hard to speak after the smart, the good amigo. I'm the third one, the handsome amigo. So there is a saying that we don't have a spirit. We are the spirit. Sometimes we give too much credits to our bodies. Think someone who never looks in his life, he doesn't know how his body is. So we believe, as religious, that bodies are just dress for our spirits. And the successful person is the one who finds a balance between his body and his spirit. In these days where everyone believes in just what we see, what we touch, what we feel, it is hard to explain the importance of spirituality, the importance of religion, the importance of faith. But as Rabbi and Monsignor mentioned, the fashion of religion will never be end. Why? Because we have spirits to take care of. As we take care about our bodies, we spend a lot about our bodies. We go to gym 1 hour, 2 hours for our bodies. We try to do different things for our bodies. And we leave aside the most important thing of us, our spirit. So it is hard for a Muslim imam to speak in 6 minutes for any topic, because first we need to remove the prejudices that are against the Muslim. Dear friends, brothers and sisters, Islam is not a new religion. Islam didn't start with Al-Qaeda or with ISIS. Islam is a 1400 years old religion. A religion which brought intention to humanity about the equality of men and women, about the differences and how all these differences are all gifts from God. Brought the attention to humanity that it doesn't matter what color we are, it doesn't matter what is our heritage. What is important is our relationship with each other and our relationship with God. God doesn't look to our careers, to our human faces, to our wealth, but He looks to our hearts. There is a saying from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and he says, "Man arafa nafsah, arafa rabbah." Whoever knows himself, he will know his God. Knowing ourselves means knowing our weak points and strong points. Knowing strong points in order to how to utilize them in order to benefit the humanity. The best thing a human being can do is being beneficial to the humanity. God created us to take care of this world. Last Sunday, I was part of a panel between scientists and clergy about Noah's flood and climate change. It was very interesting, maybe for the first time in my life, that scientists from Yale and Columbia universities saying that we are thousands of scientists, and just yesterday or two days ago, 11,000 scientists, they signed to have more attention to the climate change. And they said, we need clergy, we need religion, we need the moral perspective on board, because that's part of our inner power. So the first one is knowing our powers in order to utilize them, and being better to ourselves, being better to the humanity, and of course, have a better relationship with our God who created us and gave us everything. The second one is knowing our weak points. There are a lot of motivational speeches who says that you can do it, you will do it. We can try it. We will try it. Maybe we won't make it. Our friends will make it. We will try the best, but will not lose our temper if we can't make it. So, dear friends, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism are religious systems who works for the best of the community. There is no religious guy, he can claim that he is religious, but he damaged the other. Prophet says that if you don't want for your brother or your sister what you want for yourself, you are not a believer. You're not a good believer. So being a Muslim means believing that Muhammad, Jesus, Moses, Noah, Abraham, Adam, they are all sent from God. It's interesting, as Nabi, as persons who bring news, good news from God. It's hard to have good news today. Media won't be here today. But I have a plan to bring media. I will say that the three amigos will have a street fight. And everyone will be there. But we all can be Nabis. We all can be prophets in order to spread the good news. The good news that there is hope, there is brotherhood, there is people who will try always for the best of community, for the best of humankind. Because if you are a believer, you believe that there is one God who watches you wherever you are, even if you are alone with your internet. There is one God who watches you, and we are young, but we are still not independent from that. There is a hereafter where the complete, wonderful justice will be. So I wish you the best, and all your professors the best. It's interesting, in the first centuries of Islam, science was considered worship. There's a saying, I know that Bob is, but I said that clergy are blind. We don't see science about the time. So, just to finish.
No, because I want to remind them that we're going to spend just a couple of minutes, just a couple of questions, not too long.
Okay, just to finish. Just to finish, it's a wonderful life for clergy. So, science was considered worship. 1 hour of meditation is better than 80 years of prayer, says Prophet Muhammad. Why science was considered as worship? Because doing science means exploring the manifestation of God in the universe. Doing science means that you are doing something for the benefit of humanity, with one condition: adding sincerity and always seeking the good and the truth. Thank you very much. Be smart, make a lot of questions if you have any exam, so just let's continue.
Jason's got a mic over there. There's a question here. Behind you. We'll go here first.
Is it? Okay, cool. So I have a question addressing what you said about how our generation has the least amount of religion and how that might change based on our search for a higher meaning. Do you not think that secular philosophies such as Epicureanism can satisfy that need for higher meaning?
No, I think as Imam talked, there's a whole dimension of us that we need to pay attention to, and that is our spirit. I'm always fascinated by the 12-step programs and how they recognize addiction as an illness of body, mind, and spirit. And if you don't do something about all three, you don't recover. You can stop drinking, but if you don't change what your inner sense of self and aware of a being greater than yourself, that's an essential and a part of what it means to be a human person. I'm always fascinated by that, and I think they would say that needs to be attended to as well, the spiritual dimension of life, as well as the physical and intellectual.
But a spirit isn't necessarily religious. Like in a lot of philosophies, spirits are existent when it's a secular philosophy, including Epicureanism. He believes the spirit exists, but is tied together by atoms that will fall apart when you die, so there isn't any afterlife.
Yeah, see, as much as that's true for an Epicurean, for people of faith, we believe in the existence of a God, and that's another piece there that we would say we need to pay attention to.
And I think that we need, and what I was calling for is an invitation to learn. We know the benefits of a secular society and secular parts of society. Neither the three of us want an America which is theocratic, with the idea that religion and state are separate, that there's a secular sphere where religion has its place and where the secular state has its place. We see that as very positive. I see that as very positive. That said, Epicureanism is a great philosophy. It's been around for a very long time, but I think that what it can do at times is likewise misinterpret religion. So when we get to questions about who is God, what makes for holiness, the more you study religion, the more you see a vast sea there as well. And so as we seek to define even things which we talked about today, God, afterlife, and the like, it's a bit more complicated than oftentimes it's being presented, and I feel that oftentimes religious systems are being, as it were, generalized and dismissed.
All right, thank you.
Just to conclude, because I think this can continue as a conversation for 2 hours. There is no good thing in humanity that has a single owner, which means that being kind, it's good when you are religious or a non-religious one. I don't think that sometimes the mistake of religious people is taking that ownership and that attribution as that this is just from us. We say this: persons have their own habits, whatever they do, their own actions. Actions and belief is the one who decides if you are religious or no. I know a lot of people who claim that they are religious, but they are not. I know a lot of people who claim that they are unreligious and atheists. They have everything that a believer must have except faith. We can talk about the importance of faith. There is death, dealing with death, what's going to happen after, hereafter, etc., which are questions which always will be raised in our minds. So if you are a good person, whatever you say, if you are religious or no, that is a good thing. You are in the status of a belief. We believe that that is the action of a believer.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. I have a question specifically for Rabbi Polokoff. So my Hasidic Jewish friend Ethan Lillian was deeply wondering why other Jewish faiths don't also wear yarmulkes and peyots. So I don't know if you could touch upon that.
Why some Jews wear kippot, yarmulkes, and some Jews don't?
Yeah.
Generally, there are certain traditions or certain practices which go back to either the Bible or to rabbinic literature. The yarmulke is something that is actually not required to be worn. It is simply something that some of us opt to do at some times. In the West, generally you show a sign of respect by taking off your hat. So think about what happens before the Pledge of Allegiance. Oftentimes people will take off their hats. In the East, where Judaism was born, it's the exact opposite. You show respect by covering your head. So there are traditions based upon different types of Jews of when one's head is covered. And in terms of payas, this is a tradition which has really brings itself into the last number of centuries, where some Jews who now we would see as Orthodox follow a tradition of not trimming their side locks, which is one way of interpreting a verse from the book of Leviticus. The vast majority of Jews opt to not do that.
So we got a question up here, and then we'll end with Mr. Carlson right here. Another question. So we just do two more, okay? And then there'll be three amigos will not be here for an extended period, but they'll be in the back room for a few minutes. We have a few questions on that. So we'll go up here.
Yeah, I have a question. So each of you spoke individually about worshiping one true God. So do you believe that you each worship the same God, but just in a different way?
I think the essence of God is we refer to God as sacred mystery, and I think it never comes out so clearly as in the question that you ask. I believe, and I must admit, this has been reinforced for me just in our working together as the three amigos and having these conversations and listening to people's perspectives, that there is only one God. And in some senses, we naively are surprised when a lot of the things that our traditions teach and hold are similar one to another. I think that's great evidence that there really is one God who's the source of all being. We come at that from different ways. The revelation that we have, the scriptures, the sacred texts that we refer to may, point out different elements of that. But at least to me, I can speak for myself. This has become much more clear just in our conversations for me as a fact rather than a theory.
I agree.
In an Islamic perspective, we believe in the continuity of the message. We believe that all prophets, they were part of the same message. They all came with the news from the same God through the angel Gabriel. But their messages were according to the time and according to the need of the society. So the messages of Abraham were quite different from the messages of Moses or the messages of Jesus or the messages of prophet. But when it comes to the essence, we believe in the same God in different manners. And it's interesting, even within Islam, there are several ways of how to see to the God's attributes, to the God's essence, how we believe in God. But in general, yes.
One of the talks or sessions that we give, we entitled "Our Abraham." That Abraham is an essential part of each of our traditions, and that we all share, a reverence for him as a person with a special role in God's revelation to us of who God is.
Thank you.
How can someone who feels that they've either lost their faith or doesn't have a strong relationship with God find that faith in a time where spirituality seems to be on the decline?
I always find that it's helpful and important to be able to articulate what that is. What is it that's leading me to think there might not be a God or to no longer believe? I find, and I love to have conversations when I talk to people about their inner life, that sense of that awareness that any of us might have through the various circumstances and times of our lives, that there is a God, that God is connected with me, and then how to live from that relationship. I always recommend talking about it, and that's hard, because it's hard to wrap words around my inner experience, what's going on in my mind and heart. But that effort, I think, can be really helpful. I don't know if anybody else.
And I think one of the avenues in is community, and another avenue in, likewise, is study. The types of issues which we deal with in our lives, and obviously the 21st century has its own uniqueness attached to it, but the larger questions have remained the larger questions. That earlier we had a question about Epicureanism. This also goes back 2,000 years. It's been a long-term discussion amongst us all. So there is great wisdom and pathways in all sorts of learning which we have access to, which can help us as we think through and confront these issues of spirituality and who we really are.
You know that someone went to Starbucks and he got a coffee and sat there, no cell phone, no laptop, like a psycho? You know that? He just sat there, no cell phone, no Facebook, no nothing. He just sat there drinking his coffee. Why like a psycho? Because we all have a cell phone. So it's not fashion, just sitting there and having your coffee. So the belief, I think that one of the struggles for the youth is that it's not fashion being religious. People might say that, what are you doing? You're going to church or the mosque? What? I think that we must start from somewhere. If you need that, and I think that there is no single being who doesn't have that single conversation within himself or herself. We just try to cover it in different manners, with alcohol, with drugs, or with different things. Not covering, but dealing with our problems, with our inner problems. That is the best thing that smart people do. So let's deal with our inner conversation, and let's start from somewhere. A prayer, a meditation, going to the community, which is, I think you will all see in your careers, that loneliness is the biggest trouble of 21st century. We might be within hundreds of people, but we might feel ourselves alone. That is one of the best things that religion brings, the spirit of community, but having that as a continuous spirit community. I heard a lot of people saying that community, I can go playing golf, but there will be a time where you will be unable to play golf, or you don't like golf anymore. What's going to happen? I play soccer, but it's different playing soccer and different going and sitting with each other, talking, etc. So starting from somewhere, don't listening to the fashion things. Fashion always changes. I really like this because this shows that fashion always will change.
Especially today at Taft.
Especially today, very nice.
One last thing, they want to get a selfie, and then you go,
It's a video selfie with your applauses, okay?